If you thought Le Mans, home of the 24-hour endurance race, was quiet for the other 364 days of the year, you'd be quite wrong. At Pescarolo Sports headquarters, right inside the Le Mans circuit, there's always something going on, and preparations for this year's race have been busier than ever. As well as fine-tuning 2 Judd-engined LMP1 hybrids for what will be their strongest challenge to date, the team has a new driver to bring up to speed. World Rally champion Sébastien Loeb has never driven a prototype nor raced at Le Mans before, but has the old-fashioned competitive driving instincts that commended him to 4-time winner of the event, local constructor Henri Pescarolo.
He told me one day he'd like to race at Le Mans. I thought that day would be in a very long time, after he retires from rallying. I liked the idea because it reminded me of the kind of drivers they had many years ago. In those days, they were really adaptable, so I was really pleased to see the current rally champion, who's still in the process of defending his title, asking to race at Le Mans.
What I like about rallying is that we change the terrain a lot. We drive on dirt, asphalt, snow, and this is something else too. I like different experiences, so I'm happy to try something like this.
Loeb is not the first rally driver to succumb to the lure of Le Mans. Only last year, Scotland's Colin McRae finished third at the wheel of this Ferrari 550 Maranello in the GT1 category. But at the time, McRae was not competing in the World Rally Championship and had little chance of outright victory at Le Mans. Loeb, by contrast, is in the middle of defending his World Rally title, and the Pescarolos are the popular pre-race favourites.
I've noticed that many people are expecting things from me here. They're looking at what I'm going to do. But it's a team effort, and I don't want to handicap my teammates. I really want to help them have a good race.
The contrast between the Pescarolo Judd and the Citroën Xara he's been driving with such aplomb in the defence of his World Rally title are startling. In the Citroën, he has some 300 brake horsepower at his disposal. In the Pescarolo, nearly double that. Top speeds on Le Mans' Mulsanne Straight can reach 230 miles an hour, almost 100 more than the Citroën is set up for. Driving techniques, too, are radically different.
The thing I find hardest to adapt to is cornering on a fast track with these aerodynamics. It's very unusual for me to take corners at such a speed. I also find it hard to adapt my braking. That's something you don't have to do in the World Rally Championship. In rally cars, you may sometimes lock the wheels. Here, you've got to be careful you don't lock the wheels up, and that's quite difficult to do.
Sébastien Loeb adapted very quickly to driving a big prototype. It's very different from driving a rally car. You need to understand that mechanical adherence is only about 5% of the total adherence of the car to the track. Everything here is about aerodynamics. He's had to understand that, and in 3 sessions, he's reached the level of other good endurance racing drivers. He's adapted very quickly.
Au niveau des bons pilotes d'endurance, donc il s'est adapté très vite.
Pescarolo Sport has also made bold decisions in their car's design, taking advantage of some rule breaks prior to the introduction of the new specifications in 2007.
The Automobile Club de l'Ouest gave the opportunity to those who wanted it to build hybrid cars. That's to say, to keep the same chassis as last year, but change the aerodynamics. Now this presents a real advantage because the size of the hybrid is different, the weight of the hybrid is different, and the capacity of the fuel tank is different. We understood really quickly that the only way we could be competitive this year was to build a hybrid car.
In the race, Sébastien Loeb may not be getting his usual rallying co-driver's support in the car, but he will get support from teammates in driving terms, Sohail Ahari and Eric Ellery, himself a former winner. Technically, Loeb may have a lot to learn, but there's no mistaking the aura of a champion.
I don't think his background can offer us anything, but we can learn a great deal from his personality, because he came here and showed a lot of kindness and charm. and that's difficult to do. He's a world champion, but he's come here to Le Mans, and he's acting as if he's coming to learn at driving school. His modesty is the mark of a great champion.
3 weeks on and the private practice sessions are over as race week starts in Le Mans. Technical inspection dominates the first 2 days of the week as cars and drivers present themselves for a comprehensive series of pre-race checks and challenges. This year, the scrutineers will invoke different rules, with the older prototypes being handicapped by a 50-kilo weight penalty and a smaller air restrictor.
Without doubt, the main objective is to try to balance the performances between the new generation cars and the older ones. We saw last year that the older generation cars still had a small advantage compared to the new ones. And this year, we have given a little extra help to the newer cars. So we'll see how things work out.
Among the principal beneficiaries of the new rules, as we have seen, should be the 2 hybrid cars from Pescarolo Sport. They were several seconds a lap quicker than the competition in the recent test weekend and enjoy huge support from the local enthusiasts. And there's nothing like a reigning world motorsport champion to raise a team's profile. Sébastien Loeb enjoying the sunshine at the Place des Jacobins. Ranged against the Pescarolos will be the Audi R8s of US-based Champion Racing, second last year to Audi Japan Team Go, who were absent this year. A driving lineup that includes 6-time winner Tom Christensen can never be discounted, and in JJ Leto and Marco Werner, this team has plenty of experience. Another impressive lineup, Frank Biela, Emanuele Pirro and Alan McNish, share the driving duties in Champion's second car.
I think the important thing is that we work together as a unit, as a team, and that's the only way that we can try to make sure we have a victory between all of the Audis.
The ever-reliable Audis will be handicapped by the new regulations, but that hasn't discouraged Hugues de Chonat from mounting a French Audi campaign.
I think it'll be a very open race. There's a number of different contenders. The other Audis, obviously, and the Pescarolos, particularly after their performance in pre-qualifying. So I'd say there's between 5 or 6 cars capable of achieving a victory.
Also likely to figure in Hugues' top 6 is the Jim Gaynor International Dome Mugen. Seiji Ara, a winner last year, leads that driving lineup. Racing for Holland's Judd engine Dome could find life difficult among the newer cars, but no one will be trying harder than popular Jan Lammers. In the blue corner in LMP1, the Judd engine Courage of Schwager, Fry and Van, while in the red, its sister car, driven by Cochet, Nakano and Giovanni. After last year's impressive showing, Martin Short leads a 2-car roll centre racing campaign in their Dalaras. One Nissan-powered, the other a Judd engine version he'll be driving himself, alongside Joao Barbosa and Vanina X. Also a contender in terms of speed, the Zytek, already a winner this year at Spa. And in LMP2, the Lola MG squares off against the AER Lola of Intersport Racing in a bigger and more competitive LMP2 entry list than in recent years. Among the drivers making their debut this year is Californian Liz Halliday. Also likely to provide stiff opposition in LMP2 in the Gulf Fuel Sky Blue livery is the 2-car challenge from Belmondo Racing, both branded as Courage Fords, but with the reality of AER engines. But the biggest news comes in the GT1 category, where Aston Martin returned to La Sarthe for the first time since 1959 with 2 of the alluring DBR9s. Run by highly experienced Pro-Drive Racing, following their outing with 2 Ferrari 550s last year, the Astons have already won at the 12 Hours of Sebring and at Silverstone.
the opposition was as strong as ever, particularly the Corvette team, and yeah, we're really pleased to be here, but we know we've got our work cut out. I think it's going to be difficult. It always is difficult. Le Mans is a unique race, a unique challenge, and we will see. We'll do our best and see what happens.
So it's the green of Aston Martin versus the yellow of Corvette in the shape of the new, better handling C6R. Last year's GT1 winners will be holding nothing back.
It's true that Astons have recorded some very quick times and are very fast on the straights, but it's a long race, which we know very well, and we're determined to hold on to the title.
Green and yellow, but don't discount the red of Ferrari and two cars from BMS Scuderia Italia. The Ferraris have speed and capable driver lineups headed by Fabrizio Golin and Christian Pescatore. Two other Ferrari 550 Maranellos hoping to upset the leading contenders in this class are the Certec Motorsport entry in its distinctive Russian blue and the Larb competition in more familiar red. Experienced Patrice Gousselard and Vincent Voss are the main men here. Last year's GT2 winners, White Lightning Racing, boasts the best driver lineup in the class. Patrick Long, Jörg Bergmeister and Timo Bernard are indeed a formidable proposition, but there'll be no shortage of competition from their 911 GT3 brethren. This year, though, there's an additional challenge to contend with from Peynos Motorsports. The two Esperantes should further enliven the ever-competitive GT2 class. Wednesday afternoon and the first practice session of the week, and the first rain. Not the ideal conditions in which to set the cars up, but slippery track or not, it's business as usual in the pit lane. And so the first of 4 practice sessions for this year's Le Mans 24 Hours gets underway. Every year, Wednesday afternoon, there's a session, and then you have to show you can drive at night, session up until midnight. Thursday, same format. But this Wednesday's heavy rain has really added a new imponderable for all the teams. This wasn't foreseen, and all the teams normally like to use Wednesday for setup, go for a time, get that out of the way, and then look to prepare the car for the race itself and do your fuel consumption measurements, all the other work necessary to prepare for an endurance race on the Thursday. Remember, it's only on this Wednesday afternoon that the track is open for the first time since the test weekend, now a distant memory. Much of this track is open French public roads, closed only for these very rare occasions when the prototypes and the GT cars are on track. Among those teams with much to learn is Audi PlayStation Team Oreca.
The biggest challenge is when you drive on a normal track, on normal asphalt, and you suddenly go back to the national road. Basically, this is the hardest point because the tarmac intensity is not the same.
Stefano Ortelli, a former winner, delighted to be back in a prototype this year after some years in the GT class. The Japanese Dome running very well in the open wet sessions with last year's winner, Seiji Ara. Not all the teams were keen to get out in the wet, but some trying new cars, including the owner here, Peter Owen, wanted to try his Lola, but with disastrous results, caught out on the wet, long straight.
Peter's not terribly sure exactly what happened. It's one of those accidents where the car snapped sideways for no apparent reason. It could have been any number of things. And we won't know until we've had a look at the telemetry and looked at we've downloaded all the information from the car.
No such trouble for the Aston Martins, but they too were frustrated by the wet running.
Ideally, we want to work further on the race setup. We're fairly happy with the way things went, but one or two little issues that we need to address. Disappointed today because we wanted it dry, but we're making the best of it really now.
The Corvette team were very surprised by the Aston's much greater straight line speed at the test weekend just a few weeks ago, and now out in the wet they're also losing valuable development time.
I think it's put everybody a little bit behind schedule, the wet, because it looks like the race will be dry. So nobody's really pushing now to get a good setup for the rain. Just keep to the plan for what we had when we came and see what happens.
And so, if all Wednesday qualifying was frankly a bit of a write-off, Thursday dawned dry and bright, and the teams were able to get down to proper business once the track opened for Thursday afternoon session. There was a great deal of media interest and spectator interest all the way around the 13.5 kilometres of the Le Mans track for the battle between Aston and Corvette to see which way this was likely to go over the course of the weekend's race. The Pescarolos are not the only cars designed to the new 2005 hybrid regulations. This car, number 5, the Works Dome with its Honda Mugen engine from Japan, also designed to the same regulations, very fast in the dry qualifying on Thursday, driven as it was by last year's winner Seiji Ihara, sharing with Ryo Michigami and Katsutomo Kaneishi. Frank Biela there in the first of the champion Audis, car number 2. Also set good times, as did Alan McNish. Nice to see him back racing at Le Mans. In LMP2, the Gulf-sponsored Courages, the semi-works cars run by Belmondo's team, looked very impressive, but quickly earned a reputation for fragility with various problems. Impressively quick also was the number 32 car, the Intersport racing car, this to be shared by Gregor Fiskin and Liz Halliday from the United States, with very rapid Sam Hancock. In GT1, the car number 61, the Russian age racing car, was qualified very rapidly by Christophe Bouchou, faster than the 52 car, which was part of the BMS Scuderia Italia team. In GT2, the Penos Esperantes proved very rapid, impressive, frightening the Porsches, who were really on it in order to try and get that quick time in. The White Lightning cars and the Flying Lizard cars, both from the United States, were up against it all the time, but this was an unexpected surprise. White Lightning, Peterson Motorsports coming back very badly damaged after an off in the Porsche curves. The team were very keen indeed that rivals didn't have a look at the damage or indeed at all the special tweaks they put on this very rapid car. In GT1, first blood went to the Aston Martins.
It's nice to be on pole, obviously. It's nice to show that the car is very quick and it's capable to do fast times. And for me, it is also a nice thing because I hopefully might have another trophy in a row.
So pole it was for Thomas Enge in the Aston in GT1, but in the prototype class there was really never any doubt that it was going to be a Pescarolo Judd, and the honour for quickest of their 6 drivers went to Emmanuel Collard. The whole team was delighted. It's been a long time coming. Pescarolo's been working on this project since the year 2000. The team building and building, better engineering, better resources, better finances. And old Greybeard himself was actually for once seen to be smiling.
Yeah, I'm very happy for all the team because we work very hard to get this result. So it's we are very optimistic for the race now. We have both cars on the first grid, so it's perfect.
So a bright start for the Pescarolos, but will their light fade? As well as having to qualify like everyone else, the winners of last year's race always have a traditional obligation, the unveiling of their handprints cast in bronze. No Dindo Capello this year at Le Mans, but Tom Christensen and Seiji Ihara are on hand to commemorate Audi Japan's win last year. Christensen's 6th altogether. One more, and he'd move ahead of the great Jackie Ickx on the all-time Le Mans winners list.
To have these victories nowadays, takes 3 strong drivers, a very good car and a very good team. I'm a part of that this year again, and then of course I'm trying to achieve winning with them, because for them there's a lot of reasons. First American team for privateer to win the trophy, and it would be nice for Marco Werner to win first time, and JJ and me have a little bit from '99 we would like to put right. So all these things put together, I want to win again.
The fact that Christensen's car is already effectively a museum piece doesn't seem to matter. Even with its weight penalty and smaller restrictor, the Audi R8 remains a formidable proposition. Not surprisingly though, Frank Biela prefers the earlier version.
To come here now with 50 kilos more and less power, it's not a nice situation, you know, especially for its last Le Mans race. Would have been nice to be really competitive, but we knew before we were coming that in qualifying we definitely do not have a chance. But I think for the race we are still optimistic because of the things we mentioned before. The car is reliable, the team has a lot of experience, Champion Racing is doing a good job. So we think over the distance there's still a very good chance.
The R8 made its debut at Sebring in March 2000 and notched the first of 3 consecutive wins for Biela, Christensen and Pirot at Le Mans just a few months later. Third overall behind the 2 Bentley Speed 8s in 2003, Audi won again a year later. The car's speed, durability and drivability has gained it many admirers over the years. Among more recent converts, Hugues de Schoenack.
I think it's a very well thought out car, and very much easier than other cars for the engineers and mechanics to work on, because everything is geared towards endurance racing and rapid access. Changing the gearbox is a perfect example. Audi introduced the system where the whole gearbox and transmission could be changed in less than 4 minutes. They were the first to think about that, well before everyone else.
But with Audi due to return to Le Mans in the future with a new car, the Marque's designers in Ingolstadt have a problem. How on earth to come up with something as successful as the R8?
This is always the big question and the big question mark. Of course, if you come up with something new, everybody thinks it has to be better. But I'm very sure it's going to be difficult. But with all the information and all the things we experienced in the last few years, I guess they will do a proper job. And if we are coming again, I'm pretty sure it will be a successful thing.
I am sad that it's going, but on the other hand, it's the 6th year it's running and it's still in contention, although this year limited contention in terms of outright speed. But I hope it's still the best car. It's not the fastest car, but after 6 years with only small development or in the beginning of the years, it's still a car that says everything. At Le Mans, to have a car which for 6 years can be in contention, that's incredible.
Another Le Mans institution to receive long-due recognition this year at the ACO press conference was 4-time former winner and local legend Henri Pescarolo, who accepted the Spirit of Le Mans award from his newest driver, Sébastien Loeb. Also receiving the honour was French motor racing journalist Christian Moiti. Among other items of news was the announcement that Peugeot will be returning to the race in 2007, and with a newly developed diesel engine car. Also highlighted was the growth in TV coverage of the race. The best news for competitors, though, concerned the paddock and pit lane, which the ACO plans to modernise and extend to accommodate 5 more cars. Improvements are also planned for the main spectator village area behind the paddock, which will be completely redeveloped and landscaped. Work is due to start immediately after the 2005 race at the cost of some $25 million. As well as planning for the future, Le Mans sometimes has cause to look back. It's 50 years ago this race weekend since 82 spectators were killed when Pierre Levesque's Mercedes collided with an Austin Healey driven by Lance Macklin and exploded against a concrete wall opposite the pits, sending flying debris into the packed enclosures. On the 50th anniversary of the event, the ACO erected a new memorial to those who died, who included Levesque himself. The accident happened just in front of another Mercedes, driven by the great Juan Manuel Fangio, who only narrowly avoided it himself.
When I stopped to change tyres, there was some damage to my car. One of the headlights was broken, and there was some green paint from Macklin's car. I just held on tight, waiting for the impact. At 250 kilometers per hour, you can't make a sudden turn. I only managed to move a little bit to the right. Luckily, there was a small gap, but I didn't think I'd be able to get through. I just held on, waiting for the impact, which didn't come.
Former driver and journalist Paul Frere was about to take over from co-driver Peter Collins when the accident happened.
And I'm sure that the thing happened just because everyone was looking to his mirror instead of looking forward. The race management was, from some sides, very heavily criticized for not having stopped the race. But I think they took the right decision to have the race continue, because if they'd said the race is stopped, all the crowd would have gone home, roads would have been blocked, and the ambulances could not have come to the circuit.
After the 55 accident, the ACO widened the track in front of the pits, among other measures, designed to protect the crowd. But the accident is part of Le Mans history, one never likely to be forgotten in La Sarthe. Also at Le Mans in 1955 was Aston Martin, and back this year as factory team for the first time since 1959, they're also launching a new car aimed at gentleman drivers. But it's a win in GT1 that ProDrive boss Dave Richards has really come for.
I suppose the expectation and the responsibility grows on your shoulders as everyone comes here, and I know hundreds and thousands of fans coming to watch Aston Martin return to Le Mans. So for them, clearly, it's we've got to deliver.
Back in 1959, then Aston owner David Brown took the same view. Second overall in 55, 56 and 58, the Mark had entered 3 DBR1s to secure the win he so craved. They had proven speed, but also 2 significant defects, according to one of the third car's drivers.
That would have been the best car in the world if it had a Ferrari engine and gearbox. The engine was all right, but not as powerful as Ferrari, and the gearbox was a disaster.
Ferrari was indeed the main rival. Aston Martin's race plan was to have Stirling Moss set a blistering early pace, and the Ferraris would have to match it. Moss's car had to retire, but so too by Sunday morning had all the leading Ferraris. Frere and Maurice Trintignant's car eventually took second place, but it was Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby who secured the Aston Martin Marque's long-coveted first Le Mans victory. Happily, the winning DBR1 survives and is in fine racing fettle. It's even been driven by a member of Aston Martin's current driver lineup.
The only thing that came into my mind was fun. It's just such a lot of fun driving the DBR1. It was, obviously it's very, very different to today's cars, but even still you can see the guys back then must have had an absolute blast in them. They really must have done.
These days it'll be the Corvettes that Brabham & Co. will be keeping a close eye on. This year the ProDrive versus General Motors rivalry will be even better, but never bitter.
We know those guys. We've known them for several years. We have fun with them. As a matter of fact, we were out go-kart with them during the course of the off week. I mean, it's probably disappointing to people, but we're actually friends. But I think we're looking forward to a great battle on the racetrack, as we saw last year. When it gets down to dropping the green flag and everybody starts running, why it's a different world, and I think the fans are in for a wonderful event.
So the battle lines are drawn up once more at Le Mans. The parade gets underway on Friday evening. The 2005 24 du Mans is just a few hours away. Race day, and there's a huge crowd expected, with the two Pescarolos on the front row of the grid and national hero Sébastien Loeb in one of them. Advanced ticket sales are up 15% on last year. And first, the traditional curtain raiser in the form of the Le Mans Legends race. 1 hour of pure racing nostalgia as the great names and cars from the events past take to the track again to do battle once more. Always immensely popular as a support feature to the 24 hours, this year the ACO have invited the Motor Racing Legends organisation to put together a grid of cars dating from 1935 to 1955. Last year we had the Group C cars from the 80s. This year we've got something much older to look at. And leading across the line is none other than previous Le Mans 24-hour winner Johnny Herbert himself at the wheel of a Jaguar D-Type. Car number 6 there, leading from noted historic exponent Willie Green and Ben Eastwick in the third of the D-Type Jaguars, and an early interloper there in the form of Phil Hill's son Derek Hill in the beautiful Alfa Romeo 300. Early troubles, they're one of the famous Talbot team cars from the 1930s, already in a little bit of trouble. Willie Green manages to outbrake Johnny Herbert coming down to the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. Of course, in period, the chicanes were not there. The Mulsanne was one long, flat run. Green indicating to Herbert that he's gone past him as they head up towards the second chicane. So in the old days, the Mulsanne straight itself was a very, very, very long, very fast, high-speed blind. And there's an early mistake by Barry Williams, another regular historic racer, that in a Jaguar XK120, spinning as he comes onto the pit straight. He's got that, get that back underway and get it back to his owner, because Williams is going to be sharing another car with someone else later on in the race. Herbert being very brave on the brakes there, into Arnage, twitching the tail, frightening a back marker, very early being lapped there, looking in his mirrors a little late there. And that's trouble in the pit lane for the Talbot Largo. That's the Helis Sweet car, and also, sadly, for Don Hans's Jowett. Very hot here at Le Mans, and a rather slow Allard makes way for the two leaders, lapping very rapidly indeed, just over 5 minutes, which is some going. That's around 160 kilometers an hour average. A spanner, always handy in historic racing, and the number 65, that's the Barry Siddery Smith Austin Healey there, pulling off another victim of a very hot June day at Le Mans for historic cars. So Johnny Herbert is leading from Willie Green, from Barry Williams in third place. A driver change permitted in this race. If you don't make a driver change, you've got to get out of the car, run round it and get back in again within the hour. So people pulling into the pits to make that move. Beautiful C-type Jaguar. This is Nigel Webb's car, which he'll be handing over to Sir Sterling Moss in due course, car number 19. Oh, and the other C-type there, that's young Oliver Crosswaite in car 24, having a tremendous tête-à-queue there right at the beginning of the pit straight. Moss looks on, looking a little concerned, accompanied by many familiar faces from his heyday as a Jaguar Works driver. So Johnny Herbert comes in, the beautifully prepared Pearson engineering car. Gary Pearson himself there paying attention to his star driver for the day. Herbert walks slowly around the car. That's what the rules require, because other people would be taking a similar amount of time to change a driver. Gary belts him up back in again. Everyone else practicing their pit stops, some of them even with stop here boards, all very advanced and professional. But as a result of those changes, Willie Green has got out in front of Johnny Herbert. So Herbert's got to go for it now in order to secure the victory that really the crowd would come to expect. And the third beautiful Jaguar D-Type is that example there driven by Benjamin Eastick. Not so much experience as Herbert and Green, of course, but driving very respectably and holding third place. The owners of the Oscar there, Roger Earl and Gavin Pickering, who's going to drive in the 24-hour race itself later, running around the Oscar as required. Willie Green determined to hang on to Johnny Herbert, but Herbert's nose is in front now, and he knows how to make this Jaguar really go. And there's a great moment. Sir Sterling Moss himself, 75 years of age, allowed to wear by special dispensation from the governing body at the FIA his period helmet, saying, come on, everyone out of the way. He's off and away. Taken over from Nigel Webb. Sterling Moss on track at Le Mans in a C-Type Jaguar, a fine picture. Beautiful drift there from Johnny Herbert. Herbert has managed to do a lap in under 5 minutes. Herbert has lapped Le Mans in a 1955 D-Type Jaguar in 4 minutes 59. That's only about half a minute slower than some of the cars in this year's GT2 class in the 24-hour race. Fraser Nash Le Mans, a whole generation of British cars built up on the evocative nature of Fraser Nash's achievements before the war. And this huge and awesome device is a Lagonda with a V12 engine. Herbert still flinging the D-Type around with great abandon, entertaining the crowd all the way around the track, but there rather unexpectedly entertaining the crowd rather more than he intended. That number, Sterling Moss himself in his C-Type Jaguar. Daniel Poissonneau, the official starter and finisher for the Le Mans 24 Hours race, a keen enthusiast of historic cars, delighted to be able to offer the checkered flag to Johnny Herbert. So the winner of the 24 Hours itself in 1991 and a frequent competitor in recent years, Johnny Herbert wins overall by half a minute from Willie Green and the third Jaguar D-Type of Benjamin Eastick.
The steering's always moving, the braking is always moving at the back, so you've got to think probably a lot more than what you do in a prototype. So, but it's always a great experience to get back in the D.
All great fun and a great win for Johnny Herbert. For his colleagues, there's just the final presentation to the crowd, and very soon it'll be down to business. And so to Saturday, June the 18th, 2005, in an extremely hot Le Mans. A packed crowd, a bigger crowd than for many years, full of expectation for the possibility of a French home win, with the two Pescarolos having proved so fast in practice. Battles all the way down through the field, a much stronger contingent in LMP2 this year, and of course the big Aston Martin versus Corvette battle to look forward to in GT1. And further down the field, the imponderables of the GT2 class, with this year for the first time the little Peugeot Elan Esperantes having a go up against the massed hordes of Porsche, two Ferraris and the TVR Tuscan. And so the cars are released on their green flag lap. They've been sitting out there on the tarmac for well over an hour and a half now while all the formalities went through. Heat soak already building up inside the cars, and one of the Belmondo Courage cars in the LMP2 class already in trouble. Hardly necessary to weave around to warm your tyres. The track temperature is over 50 degrees. The temperature in the ambient is 37 degrees. Still trouble getting that Courage started. And on board with the second of the Corvettes here. Going to be hot inside those cars. Going to be very hot inside both the Astons and the Corvettes. The prototype drivers will have a slightly cooler afternoon, but everyone will be looking forward to the cool of the night if their cars will get them that far. This is the car that Sebastian Loeb will be driving, being started by Sohail Ayari. Just behind his teammate Jean-Christophe Bouillon. In the LMP2 class there, the MG Lola leading the Intersport Lola, and the Astons in front of the Corvettes. As the pace car brings them round to the final chicanes, everyone has to slow right down here now for a neat formation start as they burst onto the start-finish straight in front of the packed grandstands, the biggest crowd Le Mans has seen for years. Here come the two Pescarolos. Lights to red, and the green flag waves. And in a great blast of sound and colour, the 73rd running of the Le Mans 24-hour gets underway, with the Dome trying to dive up the inside of the champion Audi there, trying to get into position for the chicanes before the Dunlop Bridge, and he's managed it. That's Michigami at the wheel of the Dome with the Mugen engine, but look at the speed of the Pescarolos, immediately bursting into a couple of 100 metres lead. Cheers from the vast French crowd as the field sets off on what will be a very, very fast, very hot haul right through the next 24 hours at Le Mans. It is an endurance race, but these opening laps are always fast and furious, and this pressure has to be kept up the whole time. All the drivers in each of what will probably be about 50-minute stints between stops for fuel or fuel and tyres will be driving as hard as they can. There's no time to cruise at Le Mans anymore. The Pescarolos were timed in practice here at over 218 miles an hour, and that was some 17 miles an hour than the now weight-restricted and air-restrictor-limited Audis were able to do. Indeed, the Audis are so concerned about their top-line speed, they're having trouble getting past the GT1 Astons and Corvettes on the straight in undisturbed air. Of course, those cars can always outbrake both the GT1 cars and the GT2 cars, but already trouble for the number 36 Courage. These cars, not much time to get the preparation together, and they've had troubled practices, and now it looks like a troubled race. So at the end of lap one, Jean-Christophe Bouillon flashes across the line in front of his teammate Sohail Ayari, followed by the Dome with the Mugen engine, the first of the champion Audis, and then the red, white and blue patriotically livered French Audi-sponsored Team Oreca car. This one of the cars run last year by Audi UK successfully in the race, a second-place car last year. But here is Britain's interest in this year's Le Mans 24 Hours. The Aston Martin GT1s already in front of the yellow Corvettes and already mixing it with the prototype cars. Extremely fast in a straight line, something that the American Corvette team has just had to accept. But Corvette know how to win this race. They've done it many times before, and expect that class battle to last the whole 24 hours. But look at the speed of the Astons. There they are, just accelerating past the prototypes. There has been talk that the Aston Martins were going to be limited to 3-minute 55-second laps in an attempt to get the equivalence right between the GT1 cars and the prototypes, but obviously not the case. The Aston's going for it from very early on and capable of consistently lapping in 3 minutes 50. And we could see there from on board with Sohail Ayari how slippery it is down at the corner at the end of the Mulsanne straight. The Dome also quick in a straight line, and here one of last year's Ferrari 550s, now in the hands of the Russian team, Russian Age Racing with Certec, actually in front of the second of the Corvettes. That's an impressive start by former overall Le Mans winner Christophe Bouchou, but his two Russian co-drivers are nowhere near as quick as he is. So, first regular stop for Ayari. Coming in for fuel, probably no tyres at this early stage, though the Michelin technicians are having a good look. A little bit of a check underneath the car to make sure all's well. And a stop-and-go penalty there. That's Darren Turner in Aston number 59. Darren Turner being given a stop-and-go, and that is probably for either a white line or a cone hitting infringement. Regular servicing for the Pescarolo, which means that the Dome Mugen has a little moment of glory out there early on in the lead. Obviously the leading car's already lapping the slowers, but you can see how much quicker the Pescarolo is. Bouillon carrying on, he didn't get out of the car at that pit stop, carrying on and overtaking the French Audi, no trouble at all. Simultaneous pit stops for Aston and Corvette. The cars are so finely balanced between them that pit work is going to be absolutely vital to make that difference. Probably the Corvette with the more experienced team, but ProDrive, plenty of experience over many years. But that is the Corvette out quicker, and that will mean a lead change. It does mean a lead change. There is the Aston Martin. And trouble there, that's the Dallara Nissan with Michael Krum at the wheel. This is a development engine from Nissan Motorsports, been loaned to the Roll Centre team, and obviously some troubles there for them early on. So after just under an hour, the two Pescarolos with their Judd power, first and second, from the first of the two Audis, the impressive run by the Dallara Judd in fifth place, and then the third of the Audis. Here's the leader in LMP2, that's Phil Bennett, the British touring car expert in the Cruiser Motorsports Courage. Done a good job to get out in front of the others. Down there on the straight, we can see Darren Turner overtaking the Corvette to retake the lead of the GT1 class, lost a few moments ago in the pits. And again, you can notice how those cars are so quick out of the chicane, it's almost difficult for the Audi to get past them. Look at the level pegging down the straight. That's the effect of 50 kilos of weight and those air restrictor limitations on the Audis. And in the GT2 class, here's the leader in the Penos Esperanti. Terrific opening stint by Bill Oberlin, due to share with Robin Liddell, but that looks as though there's a problem there. The bonnet's off the front, and problems also for the other American GT car, the GT1 car, the Corvette coming in with a shredded rear tyre, here driven by Oliver Gavin. He's been having a great battle with compatriot Darren Turner in the Aston.
Well, I've got a bet with Darren at the moment. I've got a £100 bet on this race that we're going to beat him, so I think my money's still looking pretty good. But it's a shame to get the puncture that happened, but these things happen. It's just sometimes the gravel here is a little bit sharp, and there's bits and pieces all over the track. It's just a bit like Russian roulette, really, unfortunately.
And talking of Gavin's mate, Darren Turner, there is Turner making a mistake on the first of the Mulsanne chicanes there, in the Aston Martin, bouncing across the curbs, and he's already had that stop-and-go penalty.
For some reason, there's a cone out there on one of the chicanes, and I must be clipping it with my mirror or something, and we got a first stop-and-go, and I didn't really understand what it was for, and I seemed to be driving the same lines when I was behind the Corvette, and we got another stop-and-go, and we had a 3-minute stop-and-go, and the biggest problem is the heat sink in the car. And it really crucified me. The car's very hot already, and I really sort of suffered.
And further drama here involving the other Penos as he takes his turn in to Arnage corner and gets clipped by Ayari in the second of the Pescarolos, who perhaps might have been wiser to have waited to overtake as he accelerated away from that corner. But anyway, looks as though the damage is done, and yes, the car is being taken straight into the pits for immediate repair. You go into the pits because you can have more men working on the car than you can in the pit lane itself, and somebody else who's going to need to do the same thing. That's the Tirada Bill Binney, number 24 WR prototype, having it off there with damage at the rear. And so Pescarolo has decided to take Soilieri out of the car after that accident, Eric Ellery is in, and away he goes. Also spinning at the first right-handed chicane on the Mulsanne Straight is the number 78 Paynos Esperanti. That one is the Sellers Franchitti Patrick Bourdais car, and it looks as though there's something more than just a spin damage. They're going to have to pay some attention to the front of the car. So after 2 hours, with Ayari's mistake having happened, the 16 Pescarolo is in the lead, but there, ominously, second, third and fourth are 3 Audis. Mistakes all over the track. The number 33 Courage there, straight on a Darnage, an easy mistake to make. That track is very slippery just at that point. Somebody else having to change a front nose, the French PlayStation Oreca Audi. Frank Montani there at the wheel. So the 2 Astons remorselessly on, very, very quick, very, very steady. Turner still got time to catch up after his 2 penalties. The little Dutch spiker in the GT2 class, various troubles all through the weekend, and another off there. And now that's a further puncher for the 64 car. There's Olivier Beretta having to come back in after another puncher. But drama here on the main straight there with a little Ferrari overtaking the Pescarolo. That's clearly got problems. And we're hearing those are gearbox problems. It's all happening all over the place. There's the Scuderia Ecos Ferrari 360 Modena. That car is off and into the barrier. But back at the Pescarolo pit, there is a sad sight for hopeful eyes. The number 17 car being worked on. Henri Pescarolo talking on the pit wall and looking very gloomy, which means that the number 2 Audi, Biela, Pirot and McNish out there, and problems also for the 39, the Chamberlain Synergy Lola, Bob Berridge there at the wheel, and that car has dropped so much oil they've decided they've got to put the safety car out. There is oil right across the racing line. That's got to be tidied up, so perhaps with the safety car out, that means that Pescarolo will not lose as much time as they would have expected. Safety car laps normally running at about 5.5 minutes instead of 3 minutes 50. That will mean they don't have to waste so much time because they're in the pit here. But further problems now for the number 2 car. That is Emanuele Pirot. He's got himself a puncher there. He's scraping the rear of the car. Meanwhile, the number 3 car, driven by Marco Werner, is brought in for regular service. And that's got to be at the same time as Pirot's problems got to be sorted out. A little bit of difficulty in the Champion Racing pit.
We had a long time behind the pace car. I was in the car for 4 stints, and the tires were cold and the brakes were cold, and just silly mistake happened, just overshoot the braking just at the restart, and we lost about 3 minutes because of that. I would have preferred to be second behind another car, because to be second behind another Audi, it's very difficult to catch.
And while Audi were having their troubles, so was the number 17 Eric Ellery Pescarolo being pushed back into the pits again. They've got to do work to the rear body and fix the rear suspension, damage caused by a puncher. And the leaderboard showing that Martin Short's Dallara is second overall. Out on track, the recovering number 2 champion Audi gets past the Aston Martin. And the Corvettes having less trouble now, and certainly the one driven by Max Papis here on board. And there you have a very good view of the special ventilated helmet that Chevrolet have provided for all their drivers. Leading in LMP2, Tim Mullin in the Courage, very nicely prepared by Cruiser Motorsports, and he's out there leading that class. However, now, sadly, troubles for the Dallara Judd, problems with the steering, the power steering not working, needing to have more hydraulic oil added. But one of the BMS Scuderia Italia Ferrari 550s is off and into the barriers, and that's a very hard impact. That is going to make it very difficult for them to continue. That looks like proper damage to the rear and suspension of the car there. But here in LMP2, Sam Hancock dives past Tim Mullin. We just had as leader of LMP2, so Hancock's Lola takes over the leadership of the LMP2 class. And here, preparing for his first ever race stint at Le Mans, World Rally champion Sebastian Loeb jumps aboard. Henri Pescarolo looks on impassively, and Loeb sets off to tremendous applause from the crowded pit straight grandstands. Out on track, car number 4 there, Frank Montagny at the wheel of the French Oreca Audi, up to second place. But still, as these shots show, difficult for him to pull away from a GT1 car. That's the Russian age 550 Maranello, not much slower than the Audis down the straight. And a problem here for the number 58 Aston Martin, working on a problem within the car. Again, it's a hydraulic problem. And real damage there, real damage. That's the second of the Works Courages, the Advan-sponsored car. Bruce Giuani there, that's damage following a puncture. And look at that, the tyre thrashing around as it comes off the ring. Rear wing smashed to pieces, shards of carbon fibre all over the track. That's how you pick up punctures at Le Mans, when you're the following car immediately after that accident. That car is in a real mess. That's going to take a lot of work to get that back out on track. Routine stop for 16. Refueled and away, coughing and spluttering up the pit lane rev limiter. But problems for everybody. The French Audi there, front wheel appears to be locked. Jean-Marc Gounod trying to get it through the chicane. And so, after 5.5 hours, the leaderboard at Le Mans 2005 has a very familiar look to it. Audi's first, second and third, with the Dome Mugen leading the chase in 4th place overall. And with both the Pescarolos now, one down in 8th place, the other 13th overall, this car on board with Sebastian Loeb. They know they've got to make up time, they know they're the fastest cars on the course, and they can do so. Not so fast on the course at the moment is the other Courage, and that car number 12 been pulled off there, up by the Dunlop chicane. They've got to get that sorted and get back that onto the track. The Dome Mugen powered, wails on into the dusk. Michigami, Ara and Kaneishi driving very impressively out onto the beginning of the long Mulsanne straight. And as dusk begins to settle, it becomes harder for drivers to see the marshals and their flags telling the slower cars to get out of the way. Plenty of room for problems, but there, no trouble at all for Peter Cox in the lead Aston, retaking the lead in GT1 and nipping past the Corvette. Oh, moment of comedy there during a stop in the pit lane for the Dome Mugen Honda. Seiji Ara at the wheel. Wheels changed, fuel in, off the jacks, and away he goes. But here the number 18, Delara Judd, with Barbosa back at the wheel, now has got a problem. They've got to attend to the power steering. Tom Christensen in the pit, sets off. This will be his first stint now. Liz Halliday here, keeping up the pressure in the number 32 Lola ER with her teammates Fiskin and Hancock. Brake discs aglow as she breaks down for the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. Regular stop here for the number 16 Pescarolo. Collard out, Bouillon in.
We're coming back slowly, but we're still 5 laps down on the leaders. We've got to try to push the car to reel them in, but without putting too much strain on it. I think it's going to be difficult to get back quickly the way things are going.
So Jean-Christophe gets the car away. He knows he's got to keep up lapping really quick. And a problem here, that's the spiker. And not only is it off track, it's on fire. They're going to have to deal with that. This could be a real problem, stopped out where they are in the Porsche curves. And that's it, the engine must have let go. You saw all the oil smoke. The engine's let go, engine's caught fire. He needs to hop out of that car very quickly, and the marshals need to put the fire out. They're going to have to check to see how much oil there is on the track. Yeah, that was Donny Crevels at the wheel there. The 3 Dutchmen, and they have brought out the safety car. That means that the spiker will have dropped a great deal of oil here, and at night that is very tricky. It's taking a lot of men to clear that up. Very keen that no one should run across all that oil and gravel and muck. So that'll be cleaned up soon and back out on track. But here's a problem. There's a wheel nut coming up, followed by the wheel itself. That's the number 34. That's the Miracle Motorsports team from the United States with their Courage. And that wheel has gone bouncing off towards the marshal's post on the outside of what is effectively turn one. And the driver is allowing the car to freewheel back down into the pit lane. I'm not at all sure he's allowed to do that. It says it's a miracle along the side. I think it will be a miracle if the ACO doesn't disqualify that car. You're not allowed to travel the wrong way down the pit lane. So after the safety car, we're back to green, and the marshal there out at Arnage waves his green flag. It's going to be very close and very untidy for everybody. And another stop and go for Aston Martin. Again, car number 59. And Dave Richards, the chairman of ProDrive, Aston Martin's build company, just shakes his head in disbelief. I'm not sure whether that's a criticism of the penalty or of his driver, but he's not at all happy. Back in the Audi pits, it's Christensen out, JJ Lado in, after a great stint by Tom.
Compared to the pace of the Pescarolos, the Mugans and all these cars with the advantages, we would never have expected to be in the lead so early. It's very difficult to be in the lead, but I'm really thankful I've had the experience before with the Audi, so we're trying to do what we have learned from the previous years, but it's still very young.
Later accelerates back into the race, and after 7.5 hours, there's the leaderboard with 3 Audis right at the top, in front of the still rapid Dome Mugen and a recovering number 17 Pescarolo up to 5th place, the Racing for Holland car in 6th place. You've just Schoenack there, his car 3rd of the 3 Audis, but should be satisfied with progress. Less so, Eric Ellery, sitting here watching more repairs to the number 17 Pescarolo. Also with troubles now is the class-leading LMP2 Intersport Racing Lola, and that's been engine off for quite a while now. They've been having a good look round. It looks as though they've got some real problems. And Eric Ellery's eyes say it all as he waits patiently. The car's now lost 23 minutes in the pits as the number 2 car pulls out happily into 2nd overall. So by 1 o'clock in the morning, the champion Audis are in 1st and 2nd place. The Oreca Audi with some troubles here, and having another look at the front suspension, the flat earlier. Now there's damage to the front suspension, again probably caused by debris. It's very hard to avoid that on the track at night. Front suspension being worked on. You see all the links there taken to pieces. And remarkably, 7th overall is number 58 Aston Martin, not just leading GT1, 7th overall. And in GT2, and perhaps rather surprised to find themselves only in 2nd place at the moment, Jörg Bergmeister gets out, Patrick Long from the United States gets in. That car was expected to be leading this class. The gap between the 2 Audis is now down to less than a lap, 3 minutes 49 seconds. So there is close competition at the front between the 2 champion Audis, with the Pescarolos rapidly making up time and looking to get back into the game. Down in the Corvette pit, it's pit stop time for Jan Magnussen. Magnussen unceremoniously hauled out by his mechanics. Oliver Gavin gets back in and away he goes. Just behind him, the number 59 car follows him on track. Elsewhere, not everybody finds the action so riveting. But not so peaceful in the Dome Mugen Honda pit there. Big work going on at the back. radiator repairs caused by accident debris has damaged water hoses, causing the engine to overheat. Ryo Michigami has to sit patiently in the car while his team gets on with the work. Out on the track, the number 16 Pescarolo, Eric Comas now at the wheel, having moved up to 4th place after the Audi France's problems, now is able to move on up to 3rd, while Michigami shakes his head and waves his hands disconsolately. Number 16 moves on up, and you can see how hard Eric Comas is trying. So there is the move for position. That means that the Pescarolo is up to 3rd. And there, the 2 champion Audis therefore now lead the number 16 Pescarolo, the temporarily in the pits Dome Mugen, and the French Audi down in 5th place, with the British Zytek now up to 6th overall. And a quick look at the retirements list does confirm a number of the cars we've seen off, and also includes the fact that that Miracle Motorsports number 34 Courage was disqualified for an illegal wrong-way push-down pit lane. And another Courage in trouble is the Belgian-entered number 35 car, which appears to have gone off and is going to need a tow out from where they are there. Not a good moment for Courage. Big puncher there on one of the Belmondo cars, but LMP2 turning into some carnage at the moment, with the MG Lola also in the pit with a major problem for them to try and fix. By comparison, the Pescarolo number 17, after its earlier dramas, Sohail Ahari now getting back into the car. A little bit of the mechanic's friend, the race tape, being applied to the rear wheel arch there, but now underway. And this, sadly, is problems, real problems here for the Dome Mugen. Seiji Ara, last year's winner, stopped out on the track, and that looks as though that's going to be a proper retirement. As Emmanuel Collard screams on in that 5-litre Judd engine Pescarolo in pursuit of the number 3 Audi, he's just put in an extremely quick lap. The fastest lap of the race so far. Werner gets out, Tom Christensen gets in, but trouble here for the number 7 car. That's the Creation Auto Sportif car, and that's a shame. They've been running very well. Former winner Andy Wallace at the wheel, out of 8th overall now, and that looks like more major repairs. And so, as dawn begins to break, it's that well-known figure of Tom Christensen, number 3 Audi, here Alan McNish in the number 2 Audi, and they're running 1-2 as dawn breaks at Le Mans. Various troubles up and down the pit lane. This is the Russian age Ferrari 550, clearly got some trouble to its underside, very important to the smooth running of the car out on track. And Collard is continuing to press on, driving each lap like a qualifying lap of a Grand Prix, determined to make up time. The 64 Chevrolet comes in for routine service. And just down the pit lane, the 58 Aston, being encouraged out of the pits by anxious Aston mechanics. And just as a result, manages to nip out in front of the rival. This battle has been going on right through the night. And a very alarming moment here for the race leader, nearly getting taken off by Jean-Marc Gouillon in the French Aureka Audi, who had an off and rejoined right at the beginning of the start-finish straight, right in front of them. And further problems, this is McNish. McNish has had an off. Former winner, Audi stalwart, what is he doing in the gravel? That must have been a problem that caused that. But the caption itself shows why it was, perhaps, that everyone is under such pressure. Look at that. 6 seconds a lap quicker. A concerned Frank Biela looks on. But the Pescarolo number 16 is 6 seconds a lap quicker. And the number 2 car, driven by McNish, yes, had a puncture. That's what caused the off. Look at the front end damage. All that's going to have to be fixed. McNish, not his fault. Got to get out, get Biela in. And as soon as they can, and they've finished refueling, McNish throwing gravel out onto the pit lane that has got into the car. So Jean-Christophe Bouillon now it is, having taken over from Collard. Now he's got to keep up Grand Prix type speed and pressure in order to try and reduce the deficit to the second place car, so that the Pescarolos have a chance of getting in there. New nose is prepared for the champion Audi. Lots of work going on inside. Biela's got to sit patiently in the car while this all happens. Meanwhile, Bouillon presses on, coming up to the start-finish line, trying to claw back another lap, and he's just done the fastest lap at the race so far, 3 minutes 34.9. That's a very quick lap indeed on this configuration of the Le Mans track. Christensen is able to press on in the lead car in his remorseless way, but the Audis are undoubtedly under pressure. The Pescarolos clearly 6 or 7 seconds a lap quicker, and from where we are at this stage in the morning, you can do the mathematics to see it might be possible, it might just be possible for the Pescarolos to catch them. In the LMP2 class, the Belmondo team is having a slightly better run now at the moment after other people's troubles. The number 37 car, driven by team patron Belmondo himself, there in 3rd position, but the other car is in 1st in their class. And way ahead of them, in fact 14 positions in front of them overall, is the number 58 Aston Martin, leading its class and making an Aston Martin sandwich around the Corvettes. Leading GT2, Mike Rockenfeller and Mark Lee changing positions there. Team patron Leo Hindley is hardly driven at all, but there's a real problem for the T2M Motorsport car. That's Xavier Pompidou. He's been very lucky to get out of that. He's really hit a tree. And evidence of how slippery the track is, how hard everybody's trying, is that Le Mans expert 6 times winner Tom Christensen himself has a little off coming in there to Indianapolis. Christensen now comes in to hand over the car to JJ Leto. The speed of the Pescarolos is undoubtedly putting the Audis under some pressure, and here's further evidence of that as Jean-Marc Gounon, now trying to close down on the Pescarolos from behind, as it were, himself has an off, that may be a further puncher, but pressure on the Audis from the speed of the Pescarolos.
You can see they are smiling when they overtake you. They have 15 kilometers more than you. They have better acceleration. They are able to overtake you in the straight line, middle, be in front of you, return back in front of you, and still pick up 10 meters. It's a disaster, you know, it's not fair.
Well, there's an awful lot of motor racing that's not fair, and being showered with gravel by a slower car is one of the other unfair aspects of racing at Le Mans. The problem caused by the racing for Holland Dome there, the orange car currently being driven by John Bosch. So the order after 261 laps is that the Audi has got a 2-lap lead over the Pescarolo Judd, but that gap is coming down all the time, and it will come down even further now if Eric Comas is able to power past, as he surely will, on the straight to unlap himself one more time. The speed differential, as we just heard Jean-Marc Gounon say, really noticeable if you're an Audi driver. And there goes the Judd-powered Pescarolo straight past, no trouble at all, in order to try and continue unwinding that deficit, while Sebastian Loeb and Henri Pescarolo watch it all back in the pits on the monitors. Ellery is now out. Sebastian Loeb jumps in on command, takes his special drinks bottle with him, gets bolted back in. And they've now clawed their way back up, watched as he is by his girlfriend, clawed their way back up to 5th place overall. Precautionary check of the side pods to make sure there isn't any muck obstructing the airflow to the radiators. Sebastian back into the race. On board with Sebastian Loeb now as he brakes hard to turn into the slowest part of the corner, the right-hand Rodanage. And it's this section here now, rather than the Mulsanne Straight, that is the fastest section of the Le Mans 24-hour course, with the Pescarolos just about touching 220 miles an hour, flashing past one of the other prototypes, the Dallara Nissan, and coming up incredibly quickly towards the first of the Porsche curves. A right, left sequence. Enormous aerodynamic G-force effect. You see Sebastian struggling with his neck there. These are all new pressures on a man straight out of rallying. And this next corner here, off camber, a traditional spot to catch out the unwary. Coming up now towards the Ford chicane, the final chicane before the start-finish line. Hard on the brakes again, down through the box. bang over the curb, avoid all that gravel that's lying there on the track, and again a hard crash across the curbs there and up past your pit. Look at your pit signals, up towards the Dunlop Bridge, another lap done. The number 58 Aston sounding as glorious and looking as steady as it has since the beginning of the race. All the principles of the pro-drive operation there, watching on the monitors. And a mistake here, a mistake by Sebastian Loeb. He's gone down the escape road, that's at the entry to Indianapolis. Probably smarter to pick the escape road, but rather surprised residents come out of their house, say, look who's parked in our driveway. Sebastian Loeb got to get back out. He's a long way down the escape road there. That will be losing valuable time. They were in 5th place. The marshals now signal him back out onto the track, but he did avoid the gravel trap, and he did avoid, more importantly, the barriers. Not so lucky here in replay. We see the that's the number 7 Creation Auto Sportif car. That's Mike Jankowski's team having a real bash and damage there. That's Jamie Campbell-Walter into the barrier. Oh, big trouble on the DBA with the Judd engine there. They've been running very nicely until their earlier troubles. Dropped back down to 13th. And Loeb here explaining himself back in the pit to Pescarolo on the radio. Just checking that there's nothing that's got too caught up, but there should have been not too much of a problem there. Okay, thumbs up from Pescarolo. Get back out on track. Meanwhile, JJ Leto in the lead. Not too disturbed about the speed of the Pescarolos at the moment. They just seem to feel that the rub of the green's rolling with them. And indeed, both champion cars on the same section of track at the same time. It's 2 laps, and now the Pescarolo not lapping nearly as quickly as the Audi R8 in the lead. The Aston's still able to monster its way past the LMP2 cars. And the GT1 with 18 hours gone. Now Aston Corvette, nicely poised for a dramatic conclusion to this enthralling Corvette versus Aston Martin debate. Johnny O'Connell takes us on the final section of the course, coming up to the start-finish line. Dramatically equipped sweeps here. The great rumbling Corvette engine thundering across the line one more time. But there's splitter trouble. You can see the front end of the car, the very important aerodynamic splitter there flapping up and down on the number 58 Aston. That's going to cause them a delay. They're going to have to come into the pits. This is going to change everything for Olivier Beretta. They've taken the Aston into the garage in order to have more men able to fix that splitter, the whole underside of the car. So important aerodynamically. It needs a proper fix to make sure. Is this the first sign of a crack in Aston's armoury? The Corvette thunders on, and as it comes up to the line now, it will, with Olivier Beretta on board, retake the lead with the car, number 58, the Aston, still in the pits. Further problems elsewhere. That's the Karim Oj from Saudi Arabia, Adam Sharp from Britain, and Yves Gosselin from France there, being pushed into the garage there. And now further problems, a puncture on the Aston Martin. Suddenly it's not all going Aston Martin's way. Expectations rising in the Corvette pit, but luckily not too far away from the pits when they had to stop. That's a definite retirement for the Gizmondo-sponsored 360 Ferrari, and a very definite reason for that is no wheel, not going any further. They've been running down quite well in the GT2 class. JJ Leto wending his way through the Porsche traffic as he makes the turn out of Arnage and accelerates away back for home. Sam Hignett here, the young British driver at the wheel of number 9 car. Very nicely prepared, the Zytek. Been quite close, up in the top 10 for a lot of the race, but no match on straight line speed. as the Pescarolo comes storming past. Manuele Pirro sets out again in the number 2 car after his pit stop. Now lying 3rd overall. You can see how much dirt and rubbish there is on the track at the first of the Dunlop chicanes. And 4th overall there, but very hemmed in by traffic down at the 2nd of the Mulsanne chicanes is the Audi PlayStation Team Oreca France, just trying to fight their way through the traffic, flashing his lights. And here we are on board again with Soya Lahari, and that's off. That may be a puncher at the rear of the car, but he's going to hit the barrier very hard. That's done a lot of damage. The hand's thrown up in frustration, and he's struggling to get it back to the pits, but the car is destroying itself.
The car's not been right for a couple.
That accident in the first place. So that means the second Pescarolo is out completely. Christensen's Audi still leads the first of the Pescarolos. In GT2, the number 71 car, Lieben Rockenfeller driving almost all by themselves, leading over the white lining Peterson car here, expected to be the victor in the GT2 class, just can't get past them, still in second place. So Tom Christensen gets back into the leading Audi. It's 1 o'clock with 3 hours to go. It may well be that Christensen is going to stay in the car till the very end of the race. On board with the Corvette, and there you can see the speed advantage that the Pescarolo has. The Audis can only just get past the Corvettes. The Pescarolo simply storms by. Now, most recent lap time makes the point quite clearly. It's still about 6 seconds, but with 3 hours to go, it may not be doable. The number 16 car still attacking very hard, but Christensen knows exactly what's going on. But there's another problem for Aston Martin. Another puncher. It's really not been going their way in the last couple of hours. Aston Martin's further troubles. Corvette goes by, and that really may well be the victory slipping away that Aston Martin so longed for in GT1. Oh, Gounod just moving across a little bit there on the number 16 Pescarolo, eventually gets the blue flag and has to make way. But what he was complaining earlier about the speed differential, he probably should have given the Pescarolo an easier passage than that. So with just 2 hours to go, the Audi number 3 leads by just 1 lap from the Pescarolo Judd number 16. They in turn have 5 laps over the second of the champion Audi, who in turn have 2 over the French Audi. And there's a problem, second in LMP2, that's the MG Lola, Tommy Erdos from Brazil at the wheel, and that looks as though something's broken at the back. Right rear wheel flapping around, pitching him into the barriers, right at the last corner before the start-finish line. He should get out of there. And all over the place that's happening to the British teams, because that's poor young Sam Hignett in the number 9 Kinetic sponsored. Oh dear, they were as high as 7th place, 6th place, but just running 7th there when he hit the wall, and that looks like that's done a lot of damage to the Jota team car. And here is a fateful decision. They've been worrying about overheating there, the chief engine man there, been worrying about overheating on the second place car, and this looks like a decision to clean the radiators on the Pescarolo and make sure that the engine doesn't blow, rather than trying to continue to battle for the wheel. Heat a problem all over the place. There's David Brabham from the Aston Martin really suffering. Ice pack on the head, feet in a bucket, special fluids. Look how hot it is. That's Darren Turner, and he's strapped inside the Aston, and he's really cooking, throwing cold water over him. They're packing not dry ice but real ice all round him. The question of cockpit heat, so neatly solved by the special cool helmets as worn by the Corvette drivers, not a problem for them, but a heat real problem for Aston Martin. And now the Aston Martin appears to be out of fuel. One car in the garage, the other one stuck out in the country, and that really is the end for Aston Martin's challenge. What a pity. Not a great moment for the British team, since the TVR, running right at the back of the GT2 field, has its own little off. And so, to the delight of General Motors and the whole of the Corvette team, there we are, number 64. They have now got to use this opportunity to make up some time, get back out and really build a lead above the Astons, just in case the other car gets out. Chaos everywhere. It's obviously very, very slippy at Indianapolis. That's the third car, fourth car we've seen going off there. Felbermeyer there in the cycle Porsche. And another puncher, another problem there. Now, that's an engine problem, not a puncher, for the Belmondo car. Adam Sharp there from Britain, the young British boy, heartbreaking, been going so strongly in LMP2, but with the chaos there's been throughout that class, it may well yet be that a position is recoverable. No such trouble for the almost metronomic young Mark Lee and young American Mike Rockenfeller as they make their way on to what looks now an almost certain GT1 victory. Suddenly, the Corvette pit stops look a little bit more leisurely. The pressure from Aston Martin is off. And as a result of all the difficulties for the Belmondo cars, which we were just seeing there, that means that even despite the spin before the start-finish straight, the Lola MG, albeit way down on the leaders overall, is back in the lead in the LMP2 class. Frank Biela storms on in the number 2 car. Christensen in the pits, very hot, needs a drink. But clearly the strategic decision within the Pescarolo pit has now been made. Better to go for second overall than to risk frying the engine in the torrid heat and with a cooling problem. Better to go for second overall and a podium finish. So ironically they pull out, Pescarolo disconsolate. A whole year of planning, of expense, of concern, of a new car, and yet still they can't beat the Audis, who've looked so steady and reliable throughout. Also out to get there to the finish, Stefan Sarrazin there with just quarter of an hour to go, put out in the Aston Martin with a new radiator installed in order at least to be able to take the finish line, probably third in GT1. And there we have the story of Le Mans 2005. The Pescarolo still pulling away from the Audi on pit straight, but too many laps behind now to make a difference. Also combining speed and reliability, we just saw there the two Corvettes as they prepare to come up to the finish line together for the perfect photo opportunity. While the Pescarolo may lead the Audi up to the line, waved on by huge numbers of French fans gathered still in the blazing sunshine, there are the reasons for champions victory. Engineer Joe Hausner, very efficient manager of everything that Christensen's done over the last 5 years at Le Mans. The marshals now traditionally begin to wave their flags. We're on to the final lap. It's coming up to 4 o'clock at Le Mans. Christensen, he won't do a slowing down lap, takes the opportunity to thank the marshals and wave to them. One finger in the air, yes indeed, Tom, number 1. And it's looking like he is indeed going to get his 7th victory at Le Mans. 7 victories out of 8 attempts. Really one of the greatest achievements in motorsports history, a most remarkable record. They're all forming up behind him now, first, second, third and fourth in line abreast, as Christensen comes up through the final turns, the gravel-strewn turns, to great applause from the crowd. Tom Christensen, unique, 7 times winner of the Le Mans 24-hour race. Tom half out of the car in his delight, justifiably delighted. The hooters and the flags, half of Denmark's here to cheer him on. Undoubtedly Denmark's leading international sportsman. A really remarkable achievement. Behind them, a finish at last for Martin Short in the Dallara. Marco Werner just delighted. That's his first win. And a sporting gesture there from GT1 winner Oliver Gavin in his Corvette uniform walking up to shake hands on the Aston Martin pit wall. So, 24 Hours of Le Mans 2005, a win for Audi, just over the Pescarolo. Too much time in the pits, too many troubles. 3rd place for the second of the champion Audis, 4th place for the French Audi, and a remarkable 5th and 6th for the Corvettes winning their class. A win also for Mike Rockenfeller and the Alex Job Racing in GT2 and for the Lola MG in LMP2. A classic Le Mans in each of the classes. Celebrations in pit lane for the Corvette team. They really have done something. And there's Dave Richards telling Max Popis, yeah, you did a good job. Generally over 100,000 people down in the pit lane to cheer on, and there's a nice sight. Dave Maraj, the Florida-based owner of the champion team, raises his team's trophy. United States team's first victory at Le Mans in well over 30 years. And a swan song for the Audi R8.
The good old baby, the R8, is going to museum. Dr. Ulrich, I'll be honored to drive it to the museum. It has been a fantastic a pleasure, privilege, dream to be part of this.
And finally, Tom can say no more. But 7 victories says it all. That's it, Le Mans 2005. Goodbye.
Juin 2006, la fièvre des 24 heures du Mans s'empare du monde automobile dans son entier. 2006,